Good morning. Good morning to those of you here in our sanctuary and to those who are viewing us online. My name is Charles Thomas. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Flint. We are an inclusive, progressive, and LGBTQ affirming church, and we are happy to have you with us. If you would like more information about Unitarian Universalism or our congregation, please feel free to contact one of our ministers or our office, and that contact information can be found at uuflint.org. I have some announcements. As always, you will find more details about each announcement in your weekly e-update. If you're visiting, you may sign up for one of our weekly email newsletters by filling out one of the cards in the seat backs and placing it in the basket as you leave, or scan the code on your order of service. Please mute your phones for our service today, but don't turn them off if you're here in the sanctuary. Consider going to our YouTube channel, pull up the service, and say hello to our online viewers. You'll see on the slide the information about the crop walk. The crop hunger walk is Sunday, October 2nd. Sign in at 1 p.m. Walk starts at 2 p.m. at Court Street United Methodist Church. This nationwide movement raises funds to end hunger and poverty in the United States and around the world. See Chris Monk or Terry Cross to walk the 3-mile route or to donate. Our next slide. Starting September 28th at 6 p.m. on Zoom, join Jerry and Lynn to discuss a critically acclaimed book that has an unusual cast of characters, all of them Unitarian Universalists. There's plenty of humor in the book called Search, and plenty of opportunities to laugh as we learn about ourselves. The book is a work of fiction, the kind that tells the absolute truth. Next slide. And finally, our last but most important announcement. Our congregation acknowledges that we stand on the traditional lands of the Council of the Three Fires and the Anishinaabe peoples who were the indigenous inhabitants of Michigan. Our congregation supports indigenous-led organizations and grassroots change movements, and we encourage others to do so as well. We also support indigenous-led campaigns in their quest to have carefully chosen land returned to them. Now have our chalice lighting. We light our chalice today to honor Suicide Prevention Awareness Month, to remember all those who have been lost in hopelessness, and to let all those who are in crisis know that there are people here who can help. Now, one of our ministers, Jerry, will give us our opening words. Oh, I'm sorry, I skipped the chalice lighting and covenant. Pardon me. Our covenant next. Recognize the richness of diversity, the beauty and wonder of shared worship, and the transforming power of love and service. We gather as a sacred, intentional community to freely seek knowledge and truth, celebrate the fullness of life, and by our actions to increase goodness and justice. So now Reverend Jerry Kerr will give us our opening words.
Thanks, Charles. Our opening words are those of Kabir, the Indian saint revered by Hindus, Muslims, and Sikhs, and people everywhere. Are you looking for me? I'm in the next seat. My shoulder is against yours. You will not find me in stupas, not in Indian shrine rooms, nor in synagogues, nor in cathedrals, not in masses, nor kirtans, nor in eating nothing but vegetables. When you really look for me, you will see me instantly. You will find me in the tiniest house of time. Kabir says, "Student, tell me, what is God? He is the breath inside the breath."
Good morning. We're going to sing hymn 108. Please rise as you are willing and able. My life flows on in endless song. My life flows on in endless song above life's lamentations. I hear the real, the far-off hymn that breathes a new creation. Through all the tumult and the strife, I hear the music ringing. It sounds an echo in my soul. How can I keep from singing? What through the tempest round me roars, I know the truth it liveth. What though the darkness round me close, songs in the night it giveth. No storm can shake my inmost calm, while to that rock I'm clinging. Since love prevails in heaven and earth, how can I keep from singing? When tyrants tremble as the hear the bells of freedom ringing, when friends rejoice both far and near, how can I keep from singing? To prison cell and dungeon vile, our thoughts to them are winging. When friends by shame are undefiled, how can I keep from singing? Thank you so much. Please be seated.
After our spoken meditation today, we will have a few moments of silence. And once our musical meditation begins, you are invited to come forward or go to the back of the sanctuary and light a candle of joy and concern, or you may also write them down in our books in the rear so that they can be published in our e-update. But first, today's words for meditation are from Peter Matthiessen. Matthiessen was a celebrated American novelist, naturalist, wilderness writer, and a Zen master. Please join me in a spirit of prayer or meditation. One day, a young monk at Ryutakuji had a kenso, which is an awakening, and his teacher, seeking to deepen this experience, led him on a long walk up Mount Fuji. Although the monk had seen the great snow mountain many times before, he truly perceived it now for the first time, like the monk who truly perceived that the sun was round. And all the way up, he kept exclaiming over the harmony and colors of the wildflowers, the flight of the birds, the morning light in the fresh evergreens, and the sacred white pine cone. See how it is made. This stone, it's so stone. Isn't it wonderful? Do you hear the nightingale? It is a miracle. Oh, Fiji-san. Muttering a little, the old master hobbled onward until finally his student noticed his long silence and cried out, "Isn't it so? Aren't these mountains, rivers, and great earth just miraculous? Isn't it beautiful?" The old man turned on him. "Yes," he said forcefully, "but what a pity to say so." Let us enter into a silence today and reflect on the many gifts we have to offer and bring grace and peace to a troubled world. Amen and blessed be.
Our readings today are a small sample of and a tribute to the great wisdom of Asia.
This is verse 33 from the Tao Te Ching. Knowing others is intelligence. Knowing yourself is true wisdom. Mastering others is strength. Mastering yourself is true power. If you realize you have enough, you are truly rich.
In verse 66 from the Tao Te Ching. All streams flow to the sea because it is lower than they are. Humility gives it power. If you want to govern people, you must place yourself below them. If you want to lead people, you must learn to follow them.
This is from I Ching. Before a person can become great, they must look foolish to the crowd.
From the book of Zhuangzi. Only he who has no use for the empire is fit to be entrusted with it. The breathing of a wise person comes from their heels, while most people breathe only from their throats.
This is verse 16 from the Tao Te Ching. When you realize where you come from, you naturally become tolerant, disinterested, amused, kind-hearted as a grandmother, dignified as a king. Immersed in the wonder of the Tao, you can deal with whatever life brings you, and when death comes, you are ready.
An ancient Chinese proverb. Love for a person must extend to the crows on his roof.
This is from Confucius. By three methods we may learn wisdom. First, by reflection, which is the noblest. Second, by imitation, which is the easiest. And third, by experience, which is the bitterest.
And from the Tao Te Ching, verse 27. A good traveler has no fixed plans and is not intent upon arriving. A good artist lets her intuition lead her wherever it wants. A good scientist has freed himself from concepts and keeps his mind open to what is. Thus, the Master is available to all people and doesn't reject anyone. What is a good man but a bad man's teacher? What is a bad man but a good man's job? If you don't understand this, you will get lost, however intelligent you are. It is the great secret.
From the Theosophical Society, one of the earliest movements to honor and study the wisdom of Asian philosophies. When the student is ready, the teacher will arrive.
And now a very irreverent song about teachers and students. Dan will do it for us on video. And the lyrics of the refrain are on the back of your order of service if you'd like to sing along with the refrain.
Sitting in the classroom thinking it's a drag. Listen to the teacher rap it just in my bag. Hear that noon bell ring and you know that's my cue. Gonna meet the boys on floor number 2. Smoking in the boys' room. Smoking in the boys' room. Well, teacher, don't you fill me up with your rules, 'cause everybody knows that smoking ain't allowed in school. Checking out the halls, making sure the coast is clear. Look under the stars, there ain't nobody here. Me and Fang and my buddy Paul to get caught would surely be the death of us all. Now smoking in the boys' room. Smoking in the boys' room. Well, teacher, don't you fill me up with your rules, 'cause everybody knows that smoking ain't allowed now. Smoking in the boys' room. Smoking in the boys' room. Well, teacher, don't you fill me up with your rules, 'cause everybody knows that smoking ain't allowed in school.
There's some fine print here at the top of my sermon I should read to you before I start. The following sermon is a topic chosen by the highest bidder at our Tales and Tunes fundraiser in May. So thank you, highest bidder, for this idea. Of course, please note, here's the fine print, that money is not refundable due to any dissatisfaction with the sermon or because of real or perceived digressions from the assigned topic, etc., etc. Minister cannot be held liable, blah, blah, blah. And seriously, if you want to hear a sermon topic on a topic of your own choosing, Lynn and I can be bought very reasonably at our yearly fundraiser. We also do it for free, of course, but we definitely jump higher for treats given to the UUCF. Every now and then, you look back at your life and remember some long ago event, and you realize that was no ordinary day. If you're like me, the remembering often appears in your head as though it's a scene out of a movie. It's your own personal video clip, a slice of your life, and you are watching yourself. In the watching, you sometimes realize it was a time when you were changing, ready for something new. Here is one of my personal movie moments that I viewed while preparing this service about the religions and philosophies of Asia that so many of us love. I'm sitting in a coffee shop and bookstore in Yellow Springs, Ohio, home of the historic and progressive Antioch College. Yellow Springs is an oasis of liberal thought in the middle of the cornfield desert that is Ohio. It was 1989, and I'm with my cousin Deanne, who is also a very close friend, and who moved to that oasis to escape her family. I was there for a visit to escape the fact that I had just been through a very painful divorce. Then, some of Deanne's friends enter the shop and sit with us. Somehow the talk turns to a new book by Stephen Mitchell, a new translation of the Tao Te Ching that would sell over 1 million copies and remind Americans that China is about more than martial arts and great takeout food. We are so turned on by that little book. There in that cramped little cafe with other customers within earshot, we start reading from the 2,000-year-old Tao Te Ching. I had already memorized part of a verse and started showing off by reciting it. A leader is best when people barely know she exists. Of a good leader whose work is done, her aims complete, the people will all say, "We did this ourselves." My vision of the past ended there, and then I asked myself, what kind of a geek memorizes passages from the Tao Te Ching and quotes them in a public place? We were in a coffee shop bookstore being religious. I'm sure none of us thought of it in those terms at that moment, but we were. Looking back on it now, I know we had plenty of company. Our nation collectively, and my friends and I as individuals, were ready for a teacher. In this case, the teacher was a little book of ancient wisdom from Asia, written by the somewhat legendary Lao Tzu. As it is often said, when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. We and millions of others were ready for something other than, or in addition to, Christianity, and it appeared. But we students aren't always ready for a new religion or any other change, for that matter. Most of us, much of the time, figure we are just fine the way we are. In fact, that is partly a good thing. You can't be beating yourself up all the time, thinking about your faults, large or small. And besides, our wives, husbands, life partners, lovers, and children, they will be happy to do that for us. There is something about life that often makes us unwilling, not ready, to see we could really use a teacher to help us change. Even Lao Tzu laments that people lose touch with the Tao, the way, which is not a God, but the very wisdom of nature. He says people who don't know the way hoard weapons, proudly presume they know everything, try to control everything, and are possessed by their overabundance of possessions. But Taoist scholars note that he never says why people become uprooted from the Tao that can make you wise and kind-hearted as a grandmother. Well, Mr. Lao Tzu, whoever you were, if this Tao Te Ching, the way of power, is so darn great, why do we get off the path so easily? Is it because we are such stubborn beings that we don't like the teacher that gives us so many rules? Teachers of whatever kind do have all sorts of rules that can make us rebel. Here are some of our family favorite rules that are guaranteed not to work. If you are smart enough to know the fine points of pre-World War II economic conditions in Germany, you should be smart enough to keep your room clean. You don't get to worry about your 28-day keto diet at dinner time if you had an Arby's chocolate shake for lunch. It only happened once. I'm sure it won't happen again. If you think you are the only one who knows how to cook, you get to cook supper all by yourself. Have fun, Jerry. Yes, we are frequently bad teachers with too many rules, or on the other hand, we are also rebellious pupils doing our own version of smoking in the boys' room. The beautiful, peaceful world described by the 81 verses of the Tao Te Ching often seems unreachable. Jerry's Just Like a Movie Memory Moment, number 2, 1974. I see myself standing, staring at a flyer on a lamppost right outside my campus dormitory. I'm a freshman at The Ohio State University, living in a cramped 4-student dorm room away from home for the first time. My best friend from high school had been on campus with me, but quit mid-year to return to the safety and solitude of the cornfields of Lucas County. He was the valedictorian of my high school class, but that didn't prepare him to deal with OSU, which, as Michiganders know, is nothing but a party school. There were 50,000 students on that campus, and I had zero ability to make friends with even one of them. I was totally bummed out. The flyer on that lamppost has a picture of Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, the founder of the Transcendental Meditation movement that is based on the Hindu holy book, the Bhagavad Gita. It reads, "Free lecture, serenity without drugs, transcendental meditation, TM, as taught by Maharishi Mahesh Yogi." My little inner movie ends as I reach into my backpack for a paper and pencil and write down the details. It was a short flick with little action, but I assure you it had plenty of emotion boiling just under the surface. It was definitely not an ordinary day for me. I went to that lecture, and in a matter of a few months, I was a fully initiated meditator in the ancient tradition of the Hindu Vedas. It was just what I needed. As was the case years later in that coffee shop in Yellow Springs, I wasn't aware that I was doing something religious. I was just ready for a new teacher. I immersed myself in studying the Vedic traditions of India and included daily yoga exercises into my routine. I had my own copy of the Gita and even wrote notes in it and underlined the really good parts. Of course, some people were threatened by the popularity of transcendental meditation and its bearded guru. They even labeled it a cult. Yes, my friends, it's true. I am a member of an Eastern cult. I hope that's okay. When I went home from college on a weekend, my family often had to hold up supper while I finished my afternoon meditation. The experiences during this form of mantra meditation are of deep relaxation, even floating. That, plus the world-affirming philosophy, everything is the Brahman, made me a bit like that overzealous student from today's reading. Oh, that stone. It's so stone. It still keeps me saying, thank you, India. It's really no surprise that many of us are attracted to the wisdom of Asia. The teacher, they promise, is a gentle one compared to the common depictions of Allah, Yahweh. Joseph Campbell, and the American guru of comparative religions, described the shortcomings of Western religions this way. You see, religion is really a kind of second womb. It's designed to bring this extremely complicated thing, which is a human being, to maturity, which means to be self-motivating, self-acting. But the Western idea of sin puts you in a servile condition throughout your whole life. In 1952, I heard a lecture by a wonderful old Zen philosopher, D.T. Suzuki. He explained this problem in Western monotheism. He stood up with his hands, slowly rubbing his sides, and said thoughtfully, God against man, man against God, man against nature, nature against man, nature against God, God against nature. Very funny religion. Dr. Suzuki had even been in America in 1893 at the first Parliament of World Religions, organized largely by Unitarians and Universalists. But our liberal love affair with the religions of the East goes back even further. You might remember, as early as the 1840s, Unitarian transcendentalists like Emerson, Thoreau, and Margaret Fuller were intrigued by the Bhagavad Gita. They had an early translation of the Gita, and to this day, Hindu and Buddhist scholars speak of the Asian soul of transcendentalism. So what is the best, most concise way to describe the differences between the philosophies of Asia and the religions that grew further west? The guy who was responsible for growing America's interest in Zen Buddhism, Alan Watts, said it was simple. He wrote, if we look deeply into such ways of life like Buddhism, we do not find either philosophy or religion as they are understood in the West. We find something more nearly resembling psychotherapy. Now, by psychotherapy, Alan Watts didn't mean laying on a couch responding to tough questions from a $100 an hour psychotherapist. The psychotherapist in Zen and other Asian philosophies is the student-patient themselves, looking for the teacher within. The advent of inexpensive paperback books in the 50s made it possible to publish titles that might only sell in modest quantities. In 1957, Alan Watts published his book, The Way of Zen. Young people loved it. It showed how Zen grew out of Taoism, and it became a bestseller, in no small part because Zen Buddhism is fun. For example, this Zen poem from Watts' book. The centipede was happy quite, until a toad in fun said, pray, which leg goes after which? This worked his mind to such a pitch, he lay distracted in a ditch, considering how to run. In other words, Zen and its mother Taoism challenge us to stop overthinking how to live because we already know how to do it. You just, as Lao Tzu taught, need the patience to let your mud settle so the water of your mind will be clear. The decades that followed saw the publication of many popular books that brought Asian religious philosophies to people, to students who were ready for a new teacher. The 1948 book Zen in the Art of Archery was one of the first to introduce Zen to Americans. Many people already intuitively understood that trying too hard to hit some bullseye they aimed for in their own life guaranteed that they would flinch and miss. Now they learned their insight was also a religion about not trying so hard that you hurt yourself. Zen and the Birds of Appetite in 1968 by the saintly monk Thomas Merton. Conservative Catholics derided him for going Asian. Merton wrote convincingly that Jesus of Nazareth was a Zen master, even though Zen Buddhism would not formally exist for another 500 years. Then in 1975 came the Tao of Physics by physicist Fritjof Capra, founding director of the Center of Eco-Literacy in Berkeley, California. It was a bestseller in the United States and has been translated into 23 languages. There are too many books to mention them all, but in 1982, there came a very successful book on Taoism that we should mention. Yes, it was The Tao of Pooh. 49 weeks on the New York Times bestseller list because the author discovered that Winnie the Pooh was not only cute, but also a Taoist master. "Rabbit's clever," said Pooh thoughtfully. "Yes," said Piglet, "Rabbit's clever." "And," said Pooh, "he has a brain." "Yes," said Piglet, "Rabbit has a brain." There was a long silence. "I suppose," said Pooh, "that's why he never understands anything." But this is not Taoism or Master Pooh's wholesale denunciation of rationality. It's just a firm reminder that you also have to use love, your intuition, to find the way. Like millions of other Americans who were ready for a new teacher, I looked to the religious traditions of Asia. I didn't do it. We didn't do it to be ornery or intentionally counterculture. It just happened. As with, in my case, a little book appearing in a coffee shop, or when I noticed a flyer on a lamppost. Like many of you, I just wasn't interested in and saw no help, no sense in the gods of my ancestors. Where I came from, where many of us come from, a lot of people scoff at the religions of Asia. But to that, Lao Tzu has an answer. Some say that my teaching is nonsense. Others call it lofty, but impractical. But to those who have looked inside of themselves, this nonsense makes perfect sense. Look inside yourself. I don't remember my mother or father or minister from my childhood ever using that phrase. Perhaps you have noticed all those statues of the gods, saints, and disciples of Eastern religious traditions have something in common. Their eyes are almost always closed, showing they are looking inside of themselves. In the iconography of Western religious traditions, the gods, saints, and their disciples usually have their eyes open, or they're looking skyward. They did not trust that there was a teacher inside of them that was good. Thank you, Lao Tzu, Maharishi, Alan Watts, D.T. Suzuki, and Winnie the Pooh, and countless others for appearing and setting the record straight. Thank you.
Now move to our time for generosity. In a place as theologically diverse as this community, we unconditionally welcome anyone who wishes to be in a community to grow as a spiritual and moral being. One of our central spiritual values is generosity, both personal and institutional. We invite you to practice this value by placing your offering in the basket at the back of the sanctuary as you leave, using the QR code, or making a gift at uuflint.org. Thank you.
Our closing words are traditional Chinese ways to wish someone well, and some of them are, of course, delightfully universal. May lucky air come to your house from the east. May treasures fill your home. May you have smooth sailing. May you live as long as Mount Nan. May you succeed through harmony and friendship. May you live for 100 years, and may your luck be as immense as the Eastern Sea.
And let us extinguish the chalice. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.